What if buying the island is actually the easiest part of owning one? Private islands run from a scrubby rock off the Maine coast for $30,000 to ultra-high net worth estates worth over $200 million, helipads, private reefs, the works. Here's the first twist most buyers never see coming. Developing a private island requires far more than purchasing land. The legal, logistical, and environmental costs can dwarf the purchase price itself. Take the Bahamas, one of the world's most active private island markets. Building there means satisfying local environmental protection statutes before a single foundation is poured. Skip that step, and construction halts entirely. And here's the detail that stops buyers cold. Some private islands aren't entirely private. Governments frequently retain ownership of foreshore areas. The beach itself, the tidal zone, belongs to the state, not to you. Foreshore is the strip between the high and low tide marks. In Thailand, the country's coastal land code designates that strip as state property, regardless of what any private deed says, a rule that has blindsided foreign buyers throughout the Gulf of Thailand. Unclear ownership rights don't just produce awkward conversations with tourists wandering onto your beach. They block construction permits, freeze financing, trap capital in escrow for years, and leave a multi-million-dollar investment sitting idle while legal teams argue over tide charts. Say you've cleared the legal hurdles. Now you need to actually build something. This is where logistics become punishing. Every worker, every bag of cement, every roll of cable travels by boat or helicopter. Labor costs on a private island can reach up to 175% above standard construction rates due to the demand for skilled staff and remote location expenses. Workers must be ferried from the nearest inhabited island daily, or housed on site, which adds catering, transport, and crew management to every invoice. That premium compounds across every trade, every phase, every month. Fresh water is the crisis no one budgets for. Most islands have no natural freshwater source. That means desalination plants, rainwater catchment systems, or a submarine pipeline, infrastructure costing millions before a single faucet turns on. Water's just the first layer. Power generation, sewage treatment, internet connectivity, emergency access, all of it requires independent systems because there's no municipal grid to plug into. You're engineering a small city from scratch. Zoom out to Southeast Asia, where private islands are so coveted by international hotel developers that acquisition costs alone have priced out individual buyers. Islands in the Andaman Sea that once listed in the low millions now open negotiations above $50 million, firmly institutional territory. Hotel developers target these islands because exclusivity is the product. A resort occupying an entire island commands rates a mainland hotel can't touch. That demand has transformed the murky archipelago in Myanmar from a backpacker frontier into a luxury development target, asking prices multiplied several times over in under a decade. Here's where it gets harder. Every bulldozer, every barge of aggregate, every pile driven into the seabed sends shockwaves through a marine ecosystem that took thousands of years to form. Environmental impact isn't a footnote. It's a central engineering constraint. Before any permit is issued in responsible jurisdictions, developers must submit an environmental impact assessment covering coral reef proximity, seagrass beds, turtle nesting zones, and water clarity. Fail that review, and the project dies on paper. Some islands, despite being privately owned on paper, can't be developed at all. Buyers have purchased islands and discovered afterward that no structure of any kind may legally be erected on them. The deed transfers, the right to build doesn't. So what does success look like? Richard Branson's Necker Island in the British Virgin Islands is the benchmark. Branson bought it in 1979 for $180,000, then spent years and millions turning it into a world-class luxury retreat. Branson's story nails the core financial truth of island development. The purchase price is almost always the smallest number on the spreadsheet. The real cost is the infrastructure, the permitting, the years of construction, and the operational overhead that never stops. For those without Branson-level capital, fractional ownership has emerged as a structural workaround. Multiple investors co-own a single island development, splitting costs and usage rights, making the economics viable without a 9-figure balance sheet. Fractional ownership sounds clean until it isn't. Who decides when to rebuild the dock? Who absorbs cost overruns when the desalination plant fails? Without airtight legal agreements, co-ownership of remote property becomes an expensive disagreement. Assuming financing is solved, construction follows a strict sequence. Infrastructure first, water, power, access. Then foundations and structures. Finishing and landscaping come last. Reverse that order, and you destroy completed work, hauling heavy equipment across finished surfaces. The barge schedule controls everything. Materials arrive in batches dictated by weather windows and tidal conditions. A week of rough seas stalls an entire construction phase, cascading delays across every downstream trade. Electricians waiting on plumbers, waiting on framers. Construction ends. Maintenance never does. Salt air corrodes metal at accelerated rates. Tropical humidity attacks timber. Hurricanes test every structural decision. The annual maintenance budget for a serious island estate runs into the millions. Remember that $600 million estate from the opening. Properties at that price point typically carry annual operating costs in the range of $1 to a few $1,000,000, staff, maintenance, insurance, and resupply logistics combined. Ownership is a full-time enterprise. Here's the insight that reframes everything. The environmental restrictions that feel like obstacles are actually the design engine. Islands that preserve their reef systems command higher resale values and rental rates than stripped, overdeveloped counterparts. The constraint is the asset. The developers who grasped this earliest built the most valuable island properties on Earth. Necker Island's reef and surrounding marine environment are central to why it commands rental rates starting at $5,400 per night for the full island. In the Maldives, Soneva Fushi built its entire brand and its premium pricing around ecological preservation. Conservation isn't a regulatory burden there, it's the revenue model. Island construction is a stress test of infrastructure economics. Every system that mainland cities take for granted, water, power, waste, access, must be independently financed and engineered. Singapore recognized this decades ago. Despite being a city-state connected to the global grid, it built its own desalination capacity to cover around 44% of national water demand, because dependency on a single source is a structural vulnerability. As climate change forces coastal cities to rethink water supply and energy independence, the engineering playbook developed for private islands turns out to be surprisingly relevant. Miami's resilience plan includes decentralized energy microgrids and elevated water infrastructure, solutions island developers have been deploying out of necessity for decades. That foreshore detail applies far beyond private islands. Coastal property buyers worldwide routinely discover that the beach they paid a premium to access isn't legally theirs. Title searches that include tidal boundary mapping aren't optional. They're essential. None of this is academic. Fractional island ownership platforms are actively marketing to upper-middle-class investors right now. Understanding the logistical, legal, and environmental layers is the difference between a sound alternative investment and a very expensive regret. Here's the number that puts everything in perspective. For every dollar spent acquiring a private island, serious developers budget $3 to $5 additional dollars for infrastructure and construction alone before a single overnight guest arrives. The purchase price, however large it looks on paper, is routinely the smallest commitment you'll make. The real lesson of private island construction is this: the ocean doesn't care about your budget, your timeline, or your deed. Build with it, and you might create something extraordinary. Build against it, and the sea will simply wait you out.